now and how we've demonized activities like human trafficking, it should be less. What is really the problem? Because I feel like the numbers are way, way too high.
As we said, it's an industry. There are people making money out of it. And as you have read, the police, politicians.
Yeah, man.
This is huge. There are people who are making money. There's trafficking for organ donation. How many people need liver, liver? Do they do liver transplants? Anyway, kidney transplant. There are all these things that are needed. Yeah. And what is their way? There's a lot of poverty. Yeah. And people just need money to get by. Yeah. And so if someone comes and says, "Oh, I will give you 10,000, give me your child," and the child is going to be used either for organ transplant or all those things. So people are making huge money out of it, and that's why the cases will continue to grow. And with the technology, there's a lot of online grooming. There are many young people who, let's say young women who want to get partners, married partners, and they go in onto those online dating sites. A lot of them are being used. I think previously, because there was no technology, it was, if I needed to traffic someone, I would go from point A to point B. Right now,
there are very many online ways. Yeah.
Go on Facebook. Even from online, from the games that, the games on phones, computers, traffickers are becoming crafty. With improvement in technology that helps us in our day-to-day life, it's also it's helping with criminals becoming
smarter. So you're basically telling us, like, traffickers are a step ahead, even a step ahead of intelligence agencies, for example, governments put out all that. Yeah, and so maybe it's even hard to counter these trafficking practices. Is that what you're telling us? For certain governments, organizations, for example,
it's harder. But we cannot give up. I think there needs to be a lot of awareness creation. Yeah. And so that then the more the population is aware, then we are able to tell, oh, this is trafficking. If you come to me and tell me, oh, kuna kazi Germany, I need to interrogate, first, do I have a contract? What does this contract stipulate? In case I go there, in case I have an issue, do I have access to the embassy? So as we create awareness and people have this information, then it would make it harder. But then again, so long as there's poverty, so long as there's high unemployment rate, and people want to leave,
guys will be taken advantage of.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious, by the way, because I remember you mentioned one of the factors leading to high human trafficking cases is ignorance. So how does an individual know that they're being trafficked, that they're being victimized, and I guess then they're just going about their normal business, they're being sexually exploited, overworked, crazy child labor. How do they know, and how do you, as an organization, jump in there and say, boss, hey, bana, you're taking advantage of this child. What are you up to, you guys? So how does an individual know that they're actually being victimized?
There are those that are easy to tell, in the sense that if someone, as basic, this is a minor who's maybe coming from a country and wants to work as a house help, and someone comes and says, oh, give me this person, let her go work for me or for someone else. Already, just by virtue that person is a minor and they have no consent, that's trafficking. And it's very, very common, especially rural to urban. But apart from that, there are, like, these cases of people going to the Gulf. We already know there have been, there are places that are mostly known for the high cases of trafficking or high cases of exploitation.
Oh, talk about that.
So then when you are going there, it could be 50-50. There are those who've gone to the Gulf and their experiences have been good. They have gotten good employers. There are those who've gone and the experiences are bad. And so then it's not easy to tell, are they exploiting me or not? But when someone confiscates your passport, like immediately you sign your contract or make way to the country that you're going, and your passport is confiscated, your personal documents. Already that person has denied you the power.
Yeah.
And they have taken away your agency.
Yeah.
And so then you're not able to. From that point already you know, but it might be too late.
Yeah.
But also when you have contracts for jobs and they're not clear, or you ask questions and you're being told you're asking too many questions, or maybe you're like, can I go through this with my lawyer? And, you know, you can get either opposition or someone is not forthright with information.
Yeah.
Of course, there could be red flags in terms of trafficking. So some cases are easy to tell, some cases are not easy to tell. Kenya being it's a source, but also it's a destination. When I say a source is, there are people who have been trafficked from Kenya into other countries. And when I say it's a destination, it means there are people who've come from Rwanda, from Somalia.
I've even seen India.
Nepal.
I don't remember that story where we saw a bunch of Indian ladies who were locked up in a room somewhere.
Oh yeah, I
Remember it was in the
remember.
news?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are people who are coming in.
Yeah.
And so in such places, if someone, so there are those that are easy to tell,
Okay.
but the nature of trafficking makes it very hard to tell.
All right.
I think I agree. I agree. I think I've been trafficked locally.
Oh yeah?
it just hit me that I've been trafficked
Oh, really?
locally.
Oh,
For real?
Yes, and
Yeah.
I think I would really be interested in how you reach out to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Because if someone doesn't come and report, because when I was around maybe 16, 17 years, someone very close to me trafficked.
Like a relative.
Like a relative, yes.
Damn.
And I realized now that you've mentioned it, she was paid for it. And she didn't feel anything.
What?
Yes.
And did your folks know about this?
Of
Because
course-
you were
of
a
course,
minor at that time.
I was a minor, of course. I was raised by my grandma. So this was a
Yeah.
relative who felt like she had power over me.
Right.
For whatever reason, I would she felt at that time. I just woke up one morning, I was told, pack your clothes, this is where you're going.
Yeah.
I know where Nyakach is.
Yes.
It wasn't far off, but because I was a minor,
Yeah.
it's far.
So they trafficked you in the guise of helping you.
Let me
Ama,
tell
like
you.
being a guardian, like
No,
yeah.
this is what she mentioned. I remember very well. I feel like you need to, because I'm a teen mom. So I had I think I had 2 kids then. So she just came, walked into my grandma's house and said, you know what, from today onwards, I've spoken to so and so, and you're gonna live here. I traveled to wherever I traveled. I woke up here. So I remember clearly when I walked into that homestead, there was a worker around there. And what he asked me was, young girl, where are you from? And I told him I'm from. How did you get here?
Yeah.
Like my auntie. And my cousin of mine just reminded me the other day about that incident. I don't know. Maybe I forgot. I might just hit it somewhere. You can't be here because if you've been brought here, it means whoever brought you here has been paid, and you're now this person's wife.
Wow. What?
Oh yeah, that's the other aspect of forced marriages. Yeah.
So in a situation like that, how do you guys jump in? How what works? How does she report the matter? Because I'm assuming you didn't even know what was going on.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So if you probably were told, you heard of the you were just curious. How do you approach this whole situation?
So in terms of systems that have been put in place by government, there's what you call the national referral mechanisms. And so these are systems that have been put in place to help different stakeholders working in the area of fighting trafficking and fighting exploitation. So for some, if she had information that actually if she was aware that this is trafficking, or the worker who was there, they could go to the chief, could go to the police and say, oh, this is the situation.
Yeah.
And then taken to the children's office. If there's need for the home not being safe, the aspect of then who would be the best guardian. Grandmothers have good heart, but sometimes since maybe they're dependent on others for provision, if let's say the person who did this to you was the one maybe supporting grandmother in feeding you and everything else.
Right.
If she came and said, oh, I have a better opportunity for CK, the grandmother would not have said no. And so then that means either is it the grandmother to be empowered so that then she's able to support the child, or there are shelters in place that are supporting those who've been trafficked to avoid re-victimization in such a situation.
Yeah.
But also, I've just lost my train of thought.
No, it's all good. But I wanted to jump in there, by the way. Now, for her, let's say, for example, she feels like she's traumatized by whatever happened in her past. Can she actually revisit this case and get justice?
Evidence.
It all boils down to evidence.
Evidence. You know, with children, if they come out and say, this is what has happened to me, the confession of a child holds so much. But now you're an adult.
I don't know.
There's a lot, you know, yeah. But I don't know if they can, that one, a lawyer would help. But of course, in terms of the trauma, she can get the
But
care.
this is something
the
common,
support.
obviously.
It
It's very
is
common.
Yeah, I can
In fact, where I was raised, they've normalized it.
Yeah.
They've normalized it. A teen gets pregnant.
Yeah.
The parents feel like now you're a burden to us. You end up maybe having 2 or 3 kids. What they do, they make sure they hook up with someone, an old jama or something. You're moved on, and you move, and life happens.
Yeah.
Like every time I go home for Christmas, maybe a teen girl, last time you saw them, they were in class 6 or 7, you're like, where is so and so? You're told she's married. And the mother is confidently, or the auntie or the grandma is just telling you, people keep moving, and it happens and no one feels anything. So everyone feels it's normal. It doesn't feel like it's awkward. In fact, for my story, I went, came back, and life continued.
That's
So how long
ridiculous.
did you stay? How long did you stay in that?
I didn't sleep. I was saved by this worker. Because apparently this worker, the rumor going around was this guy was sick.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know this guy is sick. All his wives are sick. If you stay here,
He's gonna get
it
you
is a
sick.
death sentence for you. So I'm going to give you transport. How much do you need?
Yeah.
I think he gave me around 300 shillings. Told me, you go back to wherever you came from because you cannot sleep here. Because if you sleep here, this guy will come here by tomorrow morning.
Damn.
So I had to come back. So I came back. My grandma was like, what happened? Of course, I explained to her what happened. My auntie came. Life continued. As in,
like nothing happened.
it is just normal.
Yeah.
Like, it is just normal. Later, the gist is this guy died 6 months later.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
He
of
was
the
a
sickness
pilot.
that he had.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, 10.
Yeah, maybe just as a follow-up question from that conversation that we've started, are there set systems out there for support now outside the country for people who will go through these kind of problems? And maybe there are situations that they found themselves in, say, the trafficking. You know, you find yourself maybe in the Gulf, which is commonly a case that is out there. Are there set systems maybe from government and maybe from organizations like you where these people can always reach out for help?
So one of the things, so how we are fighting trafficking. So there's the aspect of prevention.
Okay.
There's the aspect of protection. There's the aspect of prosecution, and there's the aspect of partnerships. So we
Okay.
call it the 4 Ps.
Yes.
And in partnerships, we understand human trafficking cannot be fought by, first, it cannot be fought by government alone. And secondly, it cannot be fought by civil society alone. And it cannot be fought by just one country alone. Because, so there's that which is within the border, but there's also a cross-border, which you're asking. And so there is the aspect of partnerships. There are different organizations working in different countries that people can reach out to, but also the embassies.
Yes.
There's the embassies, and I think our plea as civil society organizations that are fighting human trafficking is for availability of a lot of information to the public. I see my friends when they come from abroad, US, wherever, if there's just something small in Kenya, they receive texts from their embassies, or I think sometimes they are allowed to, they are supposed to check in with the embassy.
Yes.
I don't know if that happens with Kenyans abroad.
And
And
I
so,
think it happens, but not that much.
Not that much.
Yeah.
But if we had all that information
Correct.
as citizens,
Yeah.
and knowing if I go to Germany, I don't know, I keep saying Germany. If I go to Germany and there's a crisis, I need to know what are those phone numbers that I can call, how can I get help from the embassy, and all those things. I think information would be the first step in fighting this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I'm curious, by the way, is there anything like when a trafficked person consents? Eventually, they're like, nah, me, I'm cool. Guys, I'd rather not even be in Kenya.
Traffic me to wherever.
Yeah, traffic me, let's go, man. Me, poverty, me, but as an organization or the government, this person is definitely being trafficked and taken advantage of. How do you handle something like that?
So, okay, I'm yet to come across one where someone says, I have been trafficked and I'm okay with it. Unless, of course, when it's, okay, before where I am here. Okay, the journey began with working with women coming out of prostitution. Prostitution is also an aspect of, people who are trafficked a lot of times are exploited through prostitution. And so there are those who've been exploited through prostitution into countries like Hong Kong, Thailand, and everything else. And initially, maybe when they went, they were uncomfortable with it. And then because of the money they are making and everything else, and they said, okay, at least I'm making money. The same way some girls would go to Koinange Street and all those places, and initially they didn't like it, but they're like, oh, but at least I'm able to take my child to a private school. I'm able to make this money.
Yeah.
In such situations, unless the person is willing to come out of it and say, I am done with this, there's nothing you can do about it. But there are cases where now a victim stroke survivor has become a perpetrator. Since I have been to the Gulf and I know my way out, or since I came to Nairobi and I know all these bureaus that are recruiting and everything else, then I start recruiting people from up country. So there are cases where the victims now become perpetrators. And I say victims stroke survivors because legally the person who's been trafficked is considered a victim.
Yeah.
But now when it comes to civil society, human rights language, you're like, okay, the person has survived, and let's equip the person. Let's not make them continue feeling like they're victims. Let's give them an honoring.
I find it interesting that you say some of these people end up becoming perpetrators, because I know one thing is for sure, hurt people usually hurt people.
Oh, yeah.
True.
It's almost like a form of therapy. You're saying, even me, I'm going to revenge. I'm going to, So when it comes to survivors and victims, who are the majority? Is it like younger men, or is it younger girls? Let's go to the specificities,
So mostly it's not men.
For example,
women
even in
and
Kenya.
children.
Women and children.
Women and children are the highest, yes, but also the number of men who are being exploited is now on the rise. I think partly because now men are talking. Because, as we always say, mwanaume ni kujikaza. So you can find, yes, someone has been trafficked, they're going through much, but they will not come out or they will not tell their story. But for the women, they are easy to express themselves or the issues they go through. And so, but also I think because a lot of cases of exploitation are sexual exploitation, forced marriage, and the target is women. If for sexual exploitation, this woman is being trafficked to be exploited in a brothel, to be exploited in the entertainment industry, for prostitution. And then when it comes to forced marriages, children, there are many children who are exploited for forced marriages. And so, that's why the number of women and children is higher.
And what can parents
do? For
men,
would be mostly for criminal...
terrorism activities, criminal activities.
But also now, as migrant laborers and for labor.
Let's talk about preventive measures that even a parent can do. Because what else crazy parents are busy, man. You're constantly switching houses.
We are tired.
Yeah, they're also tired.
We're tired parents.
Well, what can a parent do, at least to avoid a situation where the children could be trafficked? in a space
Fast.
that's so populated. There's so much going on, especially in the big city like Nairobi.
So in terms of context, in this basic, in terms of just provision, because poverty plays a very big role. If someone has dropped out of out of school, of course, any small, not small jobs, like any opportunities for income generation that are exploitative, they are the most targeted. But in terms of, and then dysfunctional families, I think the greatest thing a parent can do is to ensure the family setup, the family setting, or the home is safe.
It's intact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Emotionally, because even children from well-to-do families, and adults from well-to-do families, they're exploited.
Yeah.
There could be something they're looking for. Avoid that. With dysfunctionalities, there's the trauma and the emotional pain that come with it. Assuming I'm a girl who's grown up in a dysfunctional family, I'm on the street or whatever, just random, this dashing, handsome guy comes, it says, and I get all wowed by the attention. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but if there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of emotional baggage I'm getting, and I feel like this man is filling that void, sometimes you'd miss out on the flags, on the red flags that, this is trafficking. Sometimes you could actually miss out on it, and you're just thinking, they're just lavishing me with love and everything else. And so there's the place for emotional stability, just the children being emotionally well. And apart from that, just the time the parents have with the children. This economy of ours and the traffic jam and everything else. What times do parents leave the house? What times do they come?
Yeah.
With our schools, there are children who at 6 they're on the roads to school.
Even earlier.
Yes, and they come back late. So that time for just the emotional investment, but also the teaching, just, when it comes to issues of sexual exploitation, again, sexual abuse, that's rape, defilement, plays a very significant role in pushing young women into places of exploitation. And if our children are not educated, if our parents are not there to protect the children, then we really are like taking away the covering that would ensure they get there. As in they're safe and they're not easily targeted. The other thing is just information. Are we invested in the things that are happening around us? I remember a case during COVID of this girl who was, I think, being tutored by someone. A young girl who was being tutored. I don't know that she was from Kayole and visiting an auntie somewhere around Ngumo. And she was being tutored. And then the next thing, they found her somewhere in Nyanza. Okay. I don't know where. That's why I'm not saying the county, but somewhere in Nyanza. And I think she had been exploited. I think it was as a wife or something.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because the guy was a boyfriend, and she was in class 8.
No.
So you see, if this guy was a tutor, and the parents or the auntie was there, there are many questions to ask. But do we know who we invite to be in the presence of our children or to influence our children? When our children are playing video games, when they're online, do we care what they're watching or whom they're interacting with?
Correct.
A lot of times technology, whatever, gadgets have been used to raise the children. I am tired. You just watch whatever you want. But do we care what they're watching? There's a lot of information. I know I'm not a guru on it, but there's a lot of information on online safety for children.
Absolutely.
Are we paying attention?
Yeah. Is government even doing enough to protect our children?
Yes. There's a place for government.
There's a place for
but there's a place for because by the time it gets to government,
Yeah.
it's beyond.
But let me ask you, for as long as there are buyers, then there's a business.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Yes.
what exactly is the law enforcement, for example? What are they doing to prevent that side of trafficking? Because we always just talk about the victims and need to sort them out, but we forget there's buyers, there's a demand. You know, so is enough being done to at least deal with these guys even before the fact?
In Kenya, of course, when it comes to especially the areas of sexual exploitation, when you're thinking about demand, that means the clients who go to buy sex from the women on the streets or whichever places they buy the sex. And so when it comes to issues of protection, of prostitution, in Kenya, the law is it's illegal to live off the proceeds of prostitution. I don't know if it has ever changed, but that's what it has been for long. And you see, then it's the woman, if I would put, I know it's not just men who buy sex, but you see, for the, let me just use woman in this case. For her, she'll be the one who's criminalized because she's living off the proceeds. But for the man, they get away with it.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if there's any arrest, is disorderly and loitering and all those things.
Correct.
But there are many countries that are working towards reducing demand, and so they've decriminalized prostitution. But then it's the men or the buyers, the buyers of sex who are arrested. It has helped, but then again, yeah. One day we will win this fight. One day we will win,
right.
But we keep fighting.
Okay, CK,
Yes.
have you got a question?
I'm just in awe that we didn't know trafficking was happening in Kenya. We assumed it only happened in movies. Now we are realizing that it's closer home. I'm just glad you're doing this, and it should happen more often. A lot of people are going through this. Something has to be done.
Yes, something has to be done.
Yeah, Mercy, you mentioned that there are very many different forms of human trafficking, and from what I get is that there are very many that are actually not known to the public out there. Very many forms. I do believe there are programs from groups like you guys and the government in terms of public sensitization. So what is the reception like out here from Kenyans? Are we looking at a time where Kenyans are more informed on human trafficking, or we have a lot more to do in terms of getting people to be aware of these forms of trafficking?
We are trying. We are making headway. I think, let me try. I started working with women coming out of prostitution in 2009. And for the longest time, we'd never heard of human trafficking as something we would discuss. And in my journey, I'm focusing on my journey. I think cases of human trafficking or just issues of human trafficking came into light for me 2012. But even in 2012, I didn't know how to handle it. There was a girl who had come in from Rwanda and all her documents had been confiscated. That's when I got to hear of brothels and all those things. And I was like, okay, how do I help this girl?
Yeah.
And I tried to get in touch with my few friends who are lawyers, and no one knew how to help. We've heard of IOM, but I never thought IOM helps in issues of human trafficking. Then I only used to know IOM in terms of refugees, resettlement, and all those things. But now there's a lot of information. We have World Day Against Trafficking. And so we are using those opportunities to talk about this. There's a lot of headway that has been made when it comes to SGBV. And we hope that the same way SGBV issues have been put on the forefront and limelight, that human trafficking issues will be put on the limelight. And so that the people are aware. As we continue educating people, we'll be able to fight it. But there's a lot of beliefs and practices that have been normalized, like in her story, they have been normalized that people don't think this is.
Absolutely.
This is trafficking. When you think about in settings where there are child brides, we have girls who come in from Somalia to be married off, and even just not Somalia. Even within, there are communities that, and let's even talk about communities like the Samburu, the Maasai, the Pokot, where young girls are married off. And sometimes it's cross community, as in cross whatever, from one place to another.
We can cross
borders.
Cross borders, but within Kenya. You see, some of those things have been largely embraced. But then again, how do you help a community change the mindset? That how do you get them to understand that these forced marriages, these child marriages are detrimental to the lives of the children?
When you take this type of knowledge to communities, let's say, outside Nairobi, are they even receptive? Ama wanaona tu hii ni kizungu mingi, hizi mambo ya Nairobi?
We mostly work within Majengo, but even in Majengo, such
bit
conversations. We have girls who've been married off at 16. We have girls who, and the mother is like, mimi napewa pesa. So how, to change, because, and they marry off such girls, and the girls continue to live within the community, and it's seen as normal.
Nothing,
because for them,
I mean, it goes back to poverty.
It's a social norm.
So that means there's a lot of work to be done in terms of public awareness when it comes to matters human trafficking.
There's a lot of work, and especially the change of mindset will not, because even if you give information, if it's something that I fight, let's say in a community where people believe if you're HIV positive, if you have sex with a younger girl, you would get cured. You see, for them,
it's a thing.
That's ridiculous.
And you see, then in such a setting, how do you change the mindset of a community?
It's a cultural problem as well.
It's a cultural problem.
Let me ask you, by the way, I believe foster children are at an increased risk of being trafficked.
True.
Have you ever encountered a victim who's been trafficked, but they're from a foster care system?
No.
But I would imagine that's happening.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is enough being done to protect foster kids, for example, from being trafficked by foreigners even?
So one of the other ways that trafficking happens is through adoption.
Adaptation,
Yes. A family comes, adopts this child, goes with them, and they're actually using them. And there have been cases. So when you're talking about fostering, I know there's the foster system, there's the charitable children institutions, and then there's situations where I am married to someone else, and then they foster my child. They become now the father. So in all those, there would be cases of exploitation. In terms of CCIs, the charitable children institutions, the government has stopped the registration because there's been a lot of exploitation.
That's a step in the right
within the institution, but even outside. In terms of outsiders coming in and exploiting the children, so the government has stopped, but there's a lot that needs to be put in place. And even when we're thinking about human trafficking and the shelters that are working with those who have been exploited and all those things, there needs to be a system in place.
Correct.
To ensure that there's accountability and to ensure that those who come into the shelters then are not re-victimized. Yes.
And are there enough shelters across this country?
No.
They're just probably in the major cities, huh? What does it look like on the ground?
Again, in terms of information, there might not be much information in terms of how many shelters are there. Recently, I got to interact with someone, and we're having a conversation of a network of shelters in Kenya, and they are pushing the campaign and working with State Department of Gender and Social Protection, issues of social protection, to ensure that then they know how many shelters are there and what are those systems that can be put in place. Because we do not have a law that is, or a system that is governing the running of shelters. For children, yes. But those ones, they're like children's homes. But not specific for children who've been exploited or adults who've been exploited.
Yeah, still on sexual exploitation. There's a conversation I saw on online, by the way, where there's a chick who suspects that she's constantly exploited by her superiors at work, but she just doesn't have the evidence to show. Maybe if you can look at it from that angle, what can somebody do in a particular situation like that? Should they just try and, record something? I mean, what do you do, man? Because I'm sure this is something that's common.
That brings a case.
Even dudes, even guys, man. See a guy, anyway, let me not give scenarios, but...
I think that goes back to the institution's commitment to fighting exploitation or sexual harassment at work. Do they have safeguarding policies? What does the HR policy say about such? But is there anyone she can confide in? Because a good institution that is committed to fighting sexual harassment and sexual exploitation at work, there needs to be systems, like, is there a reporting system? Whether anonymously or I put my name, am I confident and do I trust that the organization is committed to fighting or to protecting me so that I can report and then the organization can investigate the way they would choose to investigate? And also, is the organization powerful enough to fight, as in if it's expelling or firing the person who's exploiting? The fact that it's superiors, to what level? Because again, if it's coming from the ED, definitely the fight would be almost impossible. If it's coming from maybe just either in terms of level at par, co-worker, or maybe just the person I'm reporting to, and there are other people above the person I'm reporting to, then I could have the confidence to report. But it starts with the commitment of the organization to put systems in place to ensure that they are committed to fighting sexual harassment at work.
Yeah. What about in the community? Because, I'm sure there's somebody out there, maybe a young girl, she knows, her stepdad he's a funny character. He does some things, but he provides for the family, But remember earlier you mentioned how, the way it works, the evidence. So how does somebody go about something like that? Even like a young guy, his stepdad is doing things to him, but somehow he just can't prove it, man. Like, it must be daunting. Must be hell living in an environment like that, right? Your real mom herself is like, where, focus, where kutuna siasa zako, you just don't want me to stay with this man. Now she starts being political. How do young guys go about, stuff like that? Because there are many people who live with their stepdads or even stepmoms and who are, taking advantage of them.
It's common. We interact with it every day. The challenge that this presents is you find, even if a mother knows the child has been violated by the husband or boyfriend, many times the mothers choose to side with the
partner.
Yes. And so you find maybe the girl ends up keeping quiet, and they're like, okay, I don't have a place to go.
Correct.
So if I have to go report, then that means I need to have a place. And that's why for us, places like organizations like Ubani exist, because we want the girls to know they can find that help.
Yeah.
And because they could go to the chief, but then she has to choose between her family and the system or the support system the government will provide. But also the other thing has been in terms of evidence. If a girl has been defiled, maybe the first thing she did was shower or something, and that alone, you've already washed evidence. And so it's creating awareness and saying, okay, if this happens to you, you can report. You can go to the police. There's the gender desk. We have had good experiences and bad experiences at the gender desk. And try use the system. You
don't seem like you trust the system enough.
It's not even...
It's not as effective or what?
It's not about trusting the system. A lot of cases. So when it comes to human trafficking, we have the trafficking and I need to get my knees correct so that a lawyer does not come to me. Yes, there's the Counter Trafficking in Persons Act, which has all these things, the laws guiding how do you report, how does a prosecution happen, all the legal framework. But the challenge is not so many people know about this.
I agree.
Even the police. When you go to the borders, and these are people who are manning the borders to ensure there's no trafficking, or we've interacted with the police and they say, mi hata sijaisikia kitu kaa hiyo. Hii ni human trafficking or ini, you see. So sometimes the fact that the first person who hears this case does not have an idea that this is this case is serious, and these are the laws in how do you interview the person to write a statement. How do we've had conversations where they say, even when it comes to prosecution, maybe the evidence was not collected well, was not stored well. So a lot of times these cases just disappear. But also when it comes to trafficking cases, this is specific for trafficking, sometimes it's so complicated that the only way to give justice to this person who has been trafficked, maybe it will be, let's use the Sexual Offence Act, because then maybe we'll say she was raped, she was defiled, or and then the sentence is very different. But there are very few cases of human trafficking that have been listened to the end and the traffickers arrested and all those things. There are very few. It's not that we don't trust the system. It's just that there's a lot of awareness that needs to be done, even with the law enforcement agencies, from the reception desk to...
And as we wrap up this conversation, maybe there's a survivor out there. I'm somebody who's going through this, trafficking thing. It's like, nah, man, people are taking advantage of me. How can they interact with the organization, to get help, or even Gava? How would you encourage them to go about this situation?
So there are many organizations that are working towards fighting human trafficking. There's Ubani, Trust. There are other partner organizations we work with, like Candle of Hope. There's Trace Kenya. There's so many. And so, but...
do you have one that you'd recommend, contact information? Because I'm sure, this is very important.
I should have had my phone.
No, it's all good.
I needed to check a number.
There's a specific number you need on your phone.
Do you need a handset?
I can actually you can even go online and check.
Okay.
Right.
Because there's a number provided also by there.
I can do my Googles as well. Maybe.
Same here.
All right, guys, by the way, if you're listening to us right now, I can see it's about 9 p.m. and we are hanging out with Mercy Oyoo. She's the founder and director of Ubani Trust, and we're talking about fighting human trafficking in Kenya. Some crazy stats we're seeing over here, man. So apparently well, in 2020, an international NGO reported that there are between 35,000 and 40,000 victims of sex trafficking, including child sex tourism in Kenya, of which approximately 19,000 are children. Most perpetrators are Kenyan, including government officials, police officers, local authorities, and to a lesser extent, foreign agencies and that kind of thing. Easy. Remember, we are live on www.spicefm.co.ke. You can follow us on the YouTube. Right now, we're actually live on YouTube. The channel is at SpiceFM KE. My handle is at Matara at DJ TenKenya. And of course, my sister here, her first time on the show.
Oh, yeah.
What's your handle again?
Nino Oganda.
Nino Oganda. That's on IG, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, did you get your the information, contact information?
Let me give Ubani.
All right,
because
yeah,
I am putting myself, I'll be accountable.
Yeah, correct. And I know you're going to do a good job.
Yes.
Yes.
I wanted to give another one,
All
but
right.
it's okay. Let me just give the Ubani one. Our if I give email, they would. In terms of email, it's info@Ubani Trust.
Okay.
Do I go blank?
We can work with your email if you feel like. No pressure.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. All
No,
right.
I just need to make sure that the number is correct.
Yes,
Because if
definitely.
I just give one wrong digit,
Yeah. All right.
then
So,
it'll be like, okay, she said we'd be able to find help here.
yeah, I need to get those facts right.
Yes.
So you good?
So it's 011. I should have been on my phone.
You don't seem to be too sure. You know what? Let's just work with the email. Maybe you can just put it out there again.
011
Yeah.
508
Yeah.
8
Yeah.
4 8 sorry 011
Yeah.
508 0496.
Sawa.
Yes.
Put it out
I needed
again.
to make sure because
Yeah.
I usually interchange the. Sometimes I do 800 instead of 080. So I just needed to make sure that I don't give the wrong number.
There you go. Thank you so much for coming through, Masi Oyoo. It's been real.
Asante.
Thank you so much for educating us. She's the founder and director of Ubani Trust. It's all about fighting human trafficking in Kenya. When we come back, we're going to cruise the internet. But before that, crazy conversation. There's a lady.
Yes.
A mama called Mandy. Yeah, I'm saying stuff in bro. I'm just like, wow. This one I can't wait to hear. What? Nobody has to say about this because it's going to be crazy. It's 3 minutes.